Welcome to Soul of Travel, Women's Wisdom and Mindful Travel. I'm your host, Christine Weinbrenner-Eyrich. Each week, you'll hear me having soulful conversations with women who are tourism professionals, trailblazers, and community leaders around the world. They share their personal and professional journeys to inspire you, and their stories teach you how to become a more conscious traveler, live life aligned with your values, and create a positive impact. We are thought leaders, action takers, and heart-centered change makers, and this is the soul of travel. As WeTravel's Director of Partnerships and Enterprise Sales, Shayna Zand brings with her over 12 years of experience in the tour operator space and working with various partners in the travel industry. She joined the WeTravel team in May 2022 to build relationships with existing and new partners. She is also the Vice Chair on the Board of Directors for Tourism Cares and is based in Toronto, Canada. She loves to travel and has had the pleasure of visiting over 85 countries. In our conversation, Shayna and I talk about the value of working in different areas and levels of tourism and the experience and understanding you bring with you into leadership positions, as well as how many women are uniquely positioned to carry this knowledge and experience because of the number of women who enter the tourism workforce at entry-level positions and work their way up. We also talk about the importance of allyship in creating an inclusive workspace, how our businesses can create a positive impact in unexpected ways, and we end our conversation sharing some of the struggles with inner dialogue, nervousness, and how we can normalize these experiences for leaders. Join me now for my soulful conversation with Shayna Zand. Welcome to Soul of Travel podcast. I am your host, Christine. Today, I am really excited to be sitting down with Shayna Zand, who is the Director of Partnerships and Enterprise Sales at WeTravel. And WeTravel is an organization that I have really loved following the journey of your growth and kind of first started engaging with in 2020 during the pandemic. And I have interviewed Carrie Pfeiffer and we talked a little bit about it then. But I'm really excited to have you here today to learn a little bit more about WeTravel, but to learn about your journey and then all of the other things that have kind of caught my eye along the way. So we'll start just by welcoming you first. And then I'd like to turn it over to you, Shayna, to introduce yourself to my listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me here. This is really exciting. You've had some incredible speakers and some incredible women that I look up to. So it's so much fun to be here with you. So yeah, my name is Shayna. I am based in Toronto in Canada. Sadly, I say go Leafs go. Big hockey girl. I've worked in the travel industry for most of my career. I also worked in accounting for a bit, very exciting stuff. But I've been in the travel industry working with larger tour operators, working on the industry side of things. So, with our incredible travel advisor partners, consortium, and host agencies, as well as other types of brand partnerships. And then most recently, for the last 2.5 years, on the technology side of travel, which has been really interesting, really fun, and learning just so much. So I personally used to be a figure skater. I play a lot of volleyball. I love sports. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Oh, I love the figure skater tidbit because I didn't know that. That has never come up anywhere that I can recall hearing you speaking before. So that's always good to get that inside track. My daughter is studying to be a ballerina right now. So I think I can understand a little bit of like that level of intensity and what that looks like. That would be a fun sidebar conversation on another day. Well, I wanted to begin, you kind of mentioned the path that you've had so far within the industry. And I feel like we have similar backgrounds in that we've touched a lot of different parts of travel. And, you know, for me, for instance, I worked in an airline for an airline. I've worked for us in a small town where I was like working at the Chamber of Commerce and the information center. And then I worked for a small expedition cruise company and a family owned inn. So I've been in all these different parts. And I feel like because of that, I'm really conscious of the way that travel touches people and the impact it can have, because I've seen it from so many different perspectives. And I'm really curious about, for you, what you've gained kind of with all those different touch points and how that influences how you show up today.
You know, I've been really lucky. I grew up traveling a lot. My parents, I have a younger sister, and my parents took us away every chance that they got. Every school break that we had, any opportunity, we went away with the whole family. So like 25 of us at a time. So like my grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. Um, and I grew up doing that and seeing how that worked and how interesting it was, and then how much fun we would all have together. So doing these big groups, but then just going away, just our family, the four, you know, my parents, my sister, and I. And we still to this day, I mean, I'm planning their 65th birthdays for next year. So, um, and seeing all of that. So they're the ones that got me in love with traveling, so much so that, you know, if I'm going to work 5 days a week for majority of my life, I want to do it in something that I already enjoy doing already, and learning more about it and helping people, you know, enjoy it as much as I do. Um, when I initially got into the industry, I actually started as a tour leader. So I led the multi-day tours. I specialized in Western Canada and the Rockies. So I led anywhere from 10-day trips to, I think the longest I did was a 25-day, which is a long time on a tour. But when you have a great group, I mean, there's nothing better. And what I loved about my journey in travel, starting as a tour leader, then working on the sales team, like picking up the phones, answering the inbound calls, getting into becoming a BDM, and, you know, going out to all the trade shows and events, and then managing the BDM team, and then taking on even larger partnerships, and contracting. What I loved about all of it was having worked in so many different areas of the business itself, in the multi-day kind of travel space. So having experienced the operational side of things as a tour leader, frontline sales, um, working with our B2B partners, then getting into contracting, it was incredible to grow up in the industry and to now have a knowledge base of how so many different departments and areas of the business ran. Whereas you're talking about, you know, you worked in airlines and then small expedition cruising, and that's incredible. Um, I really grew up in the multi-day tour space. Um, but my experiences working in the various different departments, which, you know, gave me a really holistic view of how the whole business operates and a real appreciation for every role, no matter whether you're entry level or you're running a department or you're the CEO, right? That how critical every role is and every department is to making the business succeed. So that was really exciting for me, and still growing and still doing that now.
Yeah. And I think that that perspective is really valuable, and being able to kind of hang on to it as you progress, because then it makes you so much more relatable. And when you're, like you said, that holistic viewpoint really allows you just a different way to connect and bring all of the pieces together. And I think a lot of times you'll find leadership that maybe hasn't had that winding path, and it's harder for them to relate to and understand how different parts and pieces work. And I often joke, like, some of my earliest roles in the industry, one, I was a fax girl for a company that was a travel agency. And all I did back in the day was just like fax the hotel reservations for all the other agents. Horrible job. I'm so grateful that doesn't exist for anyone else as an entry level position today.
Oh my.
But like that perspective is helpful. And then another job I had, I worked in corporate and I collated just airline tickets for Microsoft and like batched them to send to all the different buildings. And both of those jobs were super grueling, but important in remembering what it was like to be there. And then also I learned a lot. And I would instinctively in companies start like be like, oh yeah, I can cover that role during their lunch, or I can cover that thing. And then I would learn that. And then they would move me to this department, but I would still remember like these pieces, right? And then I would get moved to another department. And then I would all of a sudden be like, hey, I worked in a lot of temp jobs early as well. So I would do like a 3-month contract and be like, I noticed it's not really streamlined in your communication, having sat back here printing tickets to out here. And then I'd start writing these manuals about, how to create ways that these efficiency, basically looking at efficiency in their businesses. And again, I just feel like that perspective is helpful. And I also feel like the tourism industry is a really interesting one where if you're working in other industries, you might not have started out what was the equivalent of a tour guide and now be working in the position you are in today. Like it's a little bit more linear than that. So I think it's really creates an interesting environment, but also creates people that are working at higher levels that have different connection to the whole industry and all of the different components that happen.
I think it was, I love that. I am so glad. Granted, I feel like there are still some companies who fax things, but that could be a whole other conversation for a whole other podcast. Um, but for me, it was a really great experience. When I went to university, when I was studying, I studied accounting. I came out of school and worked for a firm that specialized in cross-border taxation. So like doing taxes in Canada, and I can actually do US tax returns as well, if anyone ever needs any support. I don't know what I remember from that time, but I'm sure there's something still up there. And I spent a few months unemployed because I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I'm so glad I have that tax background without question, and that I can now look at P&Ls, and I can look at statements, and I can make decisions, strategic decisions based on that. I will never forget that time, but it wasn't something I was passionate about or something that I loved doing day in, day out. And for me, it was, how do I even just get into this industry? And the tour leader position was the one that I could just get into. And I was really lucky with the company that I was at, where during the off season, because you can only in Canada, guiding or tour leading, you really, there's only 4 or 5 months of the year, because a lot of the trips were camping style, which was fantastic. And they were the ones who gave me the opportunity, well, go work in the office during the off season and learn that side of things. And so I was lucky to be able to do those things and take advantage of them. And I always said the reason I was really good at when I was on the sales team, or when I moved to become a BDM, was because I was operationally on the road. And when there was a reason, a lot of people wanted to know their tour leaders' names beforehand, get in contact with them, be able to WhatsApp them or message them for a month or 2 months out from the tour. And I could explain why that wasn't going to work, or why that wouldn't be appropriate. Right. And I could do that because it was easy for me to just talk about it because I'd experienced it, versus somebody training me on, here are reasons why you can, like, here are the reasons why. I just knew because I had experienced that already. I also, as I've been in management for many years now, to know when I ask somebody on my team to do something and I know what that actually entails and the time that it takes and what actually has to get done and the amount of work. It was something I was always really nervous about, was managing people. I was never nervous about the strategy or about doing my work. I love what I do. And so I think that that drives you to do as good a job as you can possibly do. I was always worried about the people management side of it. And so having then done most of those roles myself was invaluable to me. Now
Mhm.
having managed people and I started, I think, managing people at when I was 28. So I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. But I rolled back onto that in terms of I know what you're doing, I know what you're going through. I've done it before. So let's talk through it together. So I loved being able to kind of grow up within the industry and still have more places to go, which is all the fun, right? So
Yeah. And as you were saying that too, I was just thinking about I was listening to some past conversations and was listening to Beth Santos talking about getting more people, more women from entry level positions into executive and C suite positions, and the lack of women that are in those roles, and women tend to live in more in these entry level positions in the industry. But just thinking about actually with your journey and my journey, actually how vital it really is then to take women to that next level, because they are carrying a lot of education about the different parts of the industry, and they can take that with them. And I think a lot of us, similar to what you were saying, might feel a little stuck about that next level as you're transitioning, because you might be thinking about those some of the leadership requirements. But I think the things that we carry with us are really important. And I don't know, this just popped into my head, but what your thought is on that, of how valuable that makes women in elevating them to those higher positions.
well, I think right now what we see, I mean, our industry is what, 70+% women who work within the travel industry. And a lot of women sit in that kind of middle management space. And then when you start to look at the statistics of how many women are actually executive level or higher or C suite, it's um, with all due, it's quite grim. Um, and I know that, we talk about it a lot. I'll be on a panel next week at WTM, or when this airs in a couple of weeks, I will have been on one already. Um, and that's part of the conversation that we're having. I think having had so many of us women who have started at entry level and have really grown up in the industry, we have that wonderful empathy and understanding for, our staff as they are growing, and as this new incoming younger generation. I'm a millennial myself, and the generation that's coming in, and they want you to show them that care and that understanding. And when you've done their roles in the past, you inherently already have that, which is wonderful. I think also in leadership roles, women and men, and you identify, you complement each other because we all think differently. In the way that, when I look at some of the other teammates that I work with and how they manage versus how I manage, we learn a lot from each other because inherently we just think differently. And that's wonderful growth, not only for ourselves, but then how we continue to grow and support our own staff. So having a mix of your executive, your C suite, the team that's leading your business at the top is only going to benefit not only your business, but all the people that work for you as well. So I think it's incredibly important. We have a lot of work to do on that front. I still sit at a director level role. Um, and I say still, I'm very proud of it, absolutely. Um, but I think a lot of companies in the travel space still have work to do. And I think one of the best things that I'm seeing happening right now is the open conversations around, where we're not trying to hide it, we're actively talking about it. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, because that's something that if I look at when I started my journey, that absolutely wasn't happening, right? So I think that steps are absolutely being taken in the right direction. Hopefully a little bit faster, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm so glad that you brought up that panel, the power of allyship in creating inclusive workspace, because I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to hear from you a little bit about why it's so important, and then, how allyship and inclusion really intersect, and why this is an important topic right now.
So we've been supporting this incredible association, Women in Travel in the UK, and They have a beautiful allyship program. Our company, WeTravel, we're going into our second year of being a corporate ally in 2025. So that's really exciting for us. We've had 4 or 5 of our management team, men on our management team, mentor and mentor women working in the industry. Um, and one of the beautiful things that I have actually found is some of my team, some of the men that were mentors, coming back and saying that they felt like they've been mentored and that they've learned so much from the women that they were mentoring, their mentees. So almost like this, that coin term of reverse mentorship. Um, so they found that they've learned a lot and that they've been able to expand and broaden their horizons. And it's been so incredibly helpful for them. And funny enough, one of them had actually come to me and said, he's like, "I don't know what I have to offer." He's like, "I don't know." And I had never, he's always been one of those staff. He's always been so sure of himself. And he's incredibly good at what he does. I have a lot of love and respect for him. And him just coming to me, so vulnerable to say, "What do I have to teach?" And I said, "Just listen to what your mentee has to say, and I promise you, like, you are in a VP level role. I promise you have a lot to teach." And then, he comes back to me later and says, "Wow, like it was so interesting to him, so enlightening for him. For our business, it's been incredibly beautiful and important. We've had some of our clients participate as well as mentees as they're starting their businesses because, yes, we work with large businesses. We also work with very small businesses. That's how we started as a company, was actually catering to small and medium-sized businesses. And they're still a very, very core part of what we do as a company. Um, so it was great also to, extend this to our clients as well, if this was something they were interested in. I'm excited to dig more into it on the panel. Um, but it's been beautiful both ways for both the mentees and the mentors. So it's been great.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting when you're looking at allyship and having conversations that are including men and women in shifting, making the changes we need to have, because that's really the vital step. And I think Alessandra is so brilliant for creating this container for that to happen. And we just both met in Panama, and I ran a session for women in the Adventure Travel Trade Association to kind of think tank and talk about some of our experiences, what we need as a community of women, what kind of efforts we might like to stand behind and champion. And one of the women came up and said, this was a great session. It was my favorite session I attended, but I wish men were here too. And so we had quite a conversation about that, about how important it is. And like, I think both spaces need to exist in order to create the changes we want to create. But I really recognize the value in this program. And as you mentioned, you WeTravel have supported women in Travel CIC, and Alessandra Alonso, whose name I definitely want to bring into the conversation because she, I think, is a true visionary in this regard. And as I mentioned, one of the things I really love most about WeTravel is the ways that you show up in the industry that are not directly related to your operations. Like, when I first heard about you, I actually didn't know what you guys did because I was just seeing these incredible panels and education. And then I would see you showing up, like supporting all these different initiatives related to sustainability and equity. And then I was like, oh, that's what they do? I was so surprised because the way that you have taken up space, I feel, is really beautiful. And like, for instance, I mentioned women in travel, also Tourism Cares, where you're a board member, but also WeTravel is there. I'm just curious to hear from you about why this is so important at WeTravel, and also to you when you're investing your time and energy to support these other organizations.
Yeah, I think, we're a global business. So I think we have staff from 30 plus countries at this point, and such an incredible, like, I can't even express my love for the people that work at WeTravel. It's just so incredible that I get to work with these people every day. And honestly, the last company I was at too, staff from, over 50 different countries, and the things that you get to learn. You know, During the pandemic, and I started working for WeTravel kind of at the middle of 2022. So kind of when things were starting to come back online and everything like that. I think looking at it glass half full, I think it gave every company a moment to pause and to say, okay, we're not in the day to day of our business right now. We actually almost have time to think and decide, what direction our company wants to go in. And, coming in 2022 and talking with the founders and, now we have such an extended leadership team now, and talking about one of the biggest, we've got three main goals as a company, and one of the three goals is to help our clients grow. And there's so many different ways to do that, right? Yes, it's through our platform, so it can streamline and create efficiencies and effectiveness for them. And that's wonderful, right? And that's a necessity to your business, right? It takes away all the things you don't enjoy doing, but the things you need to do to run your business, and gives them time to build these incredible tours and these incredible experiences for their own clients, right? And that's what they want. That's what our clients want to spend time doing. The next thing was taking a look at what matters to our clients, right? What's important to them? What do they want to learn about? What do they support? And, what's important to our staff, right? And how do we support our own staff internally? How do we build that wonderful culture? And to support our clients and our staff, it really became clear to us, let's really openly talk about what's important in this industry. When we talk about supporting women in travel, right? We're a travel technology company, right? We are very, very heavily staffed by men. We have an incredible amount of women in the business as well, but we're founded by three men who are fantastic. And so being able to have that conversation and that support and supporting female run business, that was a no-brainer to the company, and having that very open conversation. Coming in as an already sitting board member of Tourism Cares, I'd already been on the board for 2 years by the time I came on to WeTravel. They were like, Shayna, teach us. We want to learn more about what does Tourism Cares do, right? Because that's only one aspect of sustainable travel, right? What is sustainability? And when you spoke with Carrie, from Carrie from our company, she heads up our sustainability committee internally. The passion that she has and what she drives internally in our business is amazing. And we want to keep learning from, those within our industry, different sustainable practices, which includes, DEIA, which includes, how do we travel sustainably? How do we support local communities? Because that's also part of being sustainable. That's more the tourism care side. And then how do we teach our clients to do that? Right. And that helps them grow, and that helps them be better, because when you put purpose at the forefront of your business, it's going to drive your revenue. It's going to drive your profit. It's going to drive all of that as well. It kind of comes together. And so we wanted to make sure we're doing that. And then, of course, we have our entire learning and engagement platform, which is completely complimentary to anyone who wants to use it, whether you work with WeTravel or not. And it was incredible, the love and the engagement that we got from the rest of the industry and the speakers that we've had. And we just launched a course with Intrepid Travel about building product, right? How do you even start? What do you even do? We launched a course with Tourism Cares on Sustainability 101. Again, where do you even get started, right? Because we've got these niche operators coming up in the industry, right? This industry, one of the things I've always loved is we share our knowledge. And WeTravel being a platform that so many in the industry use, we have that database to speak to so many, that it's so important to us to use that for good, and educate them. If our platform is right for them, we know that they're going to work with us, right? and we're going to continue to develop and build our platform to ensure it's what our clients are looking for. But it's everything else that we're doing that not only supports our clients or potential new ones, but that also shows love and supports this industry that we all love so much. So it kind of all comes full circle. I know I think I just gave you about a 15-minute answer, but I'm so passionate about it. I could talk about it for days. I love how much we support different initiatives that are important to us as a business, to our people, but then also are incredibly important and what we want to continue educating our clients on that are part of this wonderful industry.
Yeah, well, I love it so much. Also, that's why I have an hour-long podcast, because I also, when I get impassioned, I want to have space for that, because I mean, truly, that to me is what soul of travel means, right? That's the thing that gets us in the office every day. That's the thing that gets us excited when we're moving through the world. That's what I wanted to really bring to life. Like, we're not doing this because we want to sell trips or, land clients. There's something else here. And all of the people that I'm really connected with, quickly I saw how important, really truly important, this work is to them. Again, beyond travel. It's always been beyond travel. And for me, my background was in sociology and in looking at the ways that social impact can intersect with travel. And so I've always asked, like, well, what else could travel do? What else could travel do? And I think that's why I was so drawn initially to WeTravel. Like I mentioned, I connected with Carrie Pfeiffer. She was on season 3. So anyone who, now we've teased it a million times, you can go back to episode 73 and hear from her. Her roles have changed, but it's still a great conversation. But that value that you were adding outside of what was needed, what you would need to do to run your business, I was so impressed. And then the way that they were gathering community at that time, and then creating space for conversations that were difficult, like all those things, I was just like, yes, 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 yes. Like I was so excited. So I can relate to what that does. But I also think it's so fulfilling as an employee or as someone to work in that space, because even if you're momentarily caught in the mundane of spreadsheets and whatever, you still know you're touching these things that are important to you as a person.
Yeah, I think too, when you're doing something like, for us, when we are, supporting, whether it's the event, whether it's the association, whether it's just the work that is being done within this industry and sharing that knowledge, and then we see our clients doing that as well, the profit's going to come to you. People are going to come to you. And again, I think I brought this up earlier, but you're talking about these younger generations that, travel and experiences are at the forefront of what's important to them and where they want to spend the money they have, or even the money they don't have, because that is what they want. They want these experiences. These generations care about the brand. They care about the brand that they're traveling with. They care about who they're supporting, what they're supporting, how they're supporting it. And like I said, we've got this platform that, if we can even help educate, if we can even help share, we can put those in our industry that are at the forefront of all of these incredible topics of conversation, of learnings that we want, to share. We have the ability to do that. WeTravel has positioned itself where we do, and that is a beautiful thing. And we're using that, and we're using that properly. You know, we're having all these incredible, we just had our summit, our 3-day summit. We have our webinars, we have our entire, what we call our academy. We are physically at a lot of these events as well. I believe one of our founders and one of our account executives just got back from IGLTA's annual conference in Japan, where an incredible amount of our clients attend that as well. But not only are we helping our clients learn, and in turn, they're going to see their client base continue to grow because of what they're learning and then what they're sharing and then what they're integrating and implementing into their own trips. But then, our founders, our team come back from these events and share what they've learned with our staff internally that our staff can take with them wherever they go in the future. Um, it's a really beautiful thing, especially I think now being on the tech side of things where we don't necessarily think about that. I love that our company has prioritized that. And allowed me to even be a small part of it. So,
Yeah. I won't keep belaboring it. Obviously, I have said how much I'm a fan, but I just think it's such a good example of what we can do. Like people all the time say, how can businesses do both? And I just think you can, and you just look at what you really want to do. And I know for myself, I actually was just having this conversation the other day, and I'm like, it turns out education is really important to me, which should be obvious having done this podcast for 4 years. But I was like, "Oh, it really is a way of creating an educational resource and inspiring people to look at what they're doing in their own businesses and in their own lives and how they can put that into place." And I think, yeah, it's just great to get outside of the box and get creative with what else you can do in your business that is aligned and supports what you're doing, but is also really impactful.
Hi, it's Christine, jumping in for just a minute to invite you to join the last session of the Soulful Book Sojourn for 2024. We will be reading On Our Best Behavior by Elise Loehnen. The book shares how the 7 deadly sins, even in modern day, circumscribe women's behavior. Over 3 90-minute discussions, we'll look at the ways we have been culturally programmed to obey the rules represented by these sins in a lifelong journey to be good as women. This book will serve as an outline for deep and meaningful conversations, personal exploration, and connection with community. Over the past few years, the Soulful Book Sojourn has become a magical container for connection, authenticity, and vulnerability. We'd love to have you join us for conversations happening on November 14th, December 5th, and 19th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time. For more information, visit www.souloftravelpodcast.com/events, and that will redirect you to my Lotus Sojourns page, where I'm hosting the conversation. I look forward to seeing you in our virtual book club circle soon. Now, let's head back over to our soulful conversation.
The next thing that I wanted to talk to you is kind of shifting gears a little bit. But when we were in Panama, which I was so glad to get to see you there, it was fun because we were having an impossible time trying to get together to pre-plan for this conversation. And then we're like, oh, well, we'll both be there, which we should know better because you're not like ever standing still. But we had a moment where we caught up with each other, and I asked you if there was anything that you would love to share with my listeners, in this space that maybe you don't always talk about. And we ended up kind of landing on the idea of this reoccurring kind of inner dialogue of feeling nervous or unsure or unsteady as we prepare for events. And I admitted to you that even like as I was walking up to you, I was having that conversation of like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to Shayna Zand at WeTravel, and I'm not sure that I should go over there right now. And, it's just this, I think many of us have this. And as I was thinking about it today, I actually have kind of a funny share about how I get through it. And I have like these 3 touch points if I'm preparing for an event and I'm trying to like get myself out of that headspace. And one is I went to a women's event when I launched my women's travel company. Actually, it was on International Women's Day in 2019. And Cheryl Strayed was speaking, who I adore. And she walks out, and I'm just like having my moment of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's right there. And she had her notes on her cell phone. And it was like this acrylic podium, and her flashlight on her camera was stuck on. So it was like shining through the acrylic podium. And someone like raised their hand and they're like, Miss Straight, your light's on. And she's like pushing all the buttons and she's like, I can't figure it out. Is it really bothering anyone? I'm just going to leave it that way. And I was like, okay, she totally just made it through that without that bothering her at all. And that was incredible. And then at the same conference, Glennon Doyle was speaking, and I ended up in the elevator with her. And there was a time change, but we were in Arizona, so there's no time change. And both of us were like, do you know what time it is? She's like, I don't even know what state I'm in, but I know that I don't know what time it is. And then like I saw her run out on stage a couple minutes later, and she just was like grounded in her bare feet. And then like the last one I want to share is with Brene Brown, is the one that I find myself most tapping into, because she talks about, before she did her famous TED Talk, how nervous she was. And she acknowledges today that she is still nervous, and that like she was going to speak at this one event and she said it was for a C-suite. And she's like, I don't know why, but in that moment, I didn't realize they meant C-suite. And I looked out and there's all these people in suits. And I turned to the organizer and she was like, who am I speaking to? And she's like, this is C-suite executives. You're talking to them about shame. And she's like, I don't know why, but I thought C-suite or I don't even think they said C-suite, but she's like, I thought it meant like sea level is I think what they said to her, not C-suite. And she's like, I thought it meant like really down to earth, salt of the earth type people. And I wasn't mentally prepared for this. And she's like, I wanted to backtrack. And he's like, tell them that when you go out on stage. And then she's like, I peeked around the curtain. I saw someone I knew from university or something. And that a woman came up to say, I saw you're the speaker. I just wanted to quickly tell you, I'm so excited to hear from you. And she was like a neighbor. And she's like, what I realized is that these are people. And the same thing, as I nervously approached you and many of my guests who I admire, I'm like, every time I get done with these conversations, I think that is an amazing person. And so I'm wondering from you, going back to that, like our conversation, that inner dialogue, how do you navigate it? And what do you think it would look like if we just acknowledged that many of us have that same conversation?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start with, every time I speak, whether it's on this podcast, whether it is in an interview, whether it is in a closed meeting with just some staff, I get nervous every time I speak, every single time. And I'm a talker. I constantly have to remind myself of, I think it's a saying I heard in the movie Ocean's 11, don't use 7 words when 4 will do, because I tend to over explain sometimes. I've been speaking on behalf of, like I used to do trainings all the time for travel agencies. And so I was doing that, in my mid 20s. I have for years been speaking either on stage, hosting presentations, speaking on panels, or moderating panels for multiple years. There is not a single time that I don't get nervous. And my nervousness is my heart beating out of my chest. I can literally feel my heart beating out of my chest. And like I forgot to put on deodorant that day because everything is slipping and sliding. That is how I feel every single time. The moment I sit down and say my first few words, all of a sudden, it's like I just put deodorant on stage. And I start to relax. And it's every single time. And so I always wonder why I get nervous. And I think I get nervous because I care. I care about what I'm going to say. I care about who I'm speaking to. I care about wanting this to be a really good use of their time. Time is probably one of our, if not our most valuable asset. And I want it to be beneficial to the people that I'm speaking to. And I want to feel like, that I'm getting something out of it as well, spending my time doing this. Even in a meeting, we did a leadership training a couple months ago, and every time I would raise my virtual hand to speak, my heart would beat out of my chest. And I'm sitting right here in this chair that I'm in with my colleagues who I feel incredibly comfortable around. And I'm getting nervous to say something, whether I'm agreeing with them, whether I'm challenging them, no matter what it is, I am getting nervous to say something. And I also tend to go really red. So my entire face just turns red, like it's like a whole, like it's like a tomato. So you can see it. I can't hide it. I would just say, just embrace it. There's really, for me, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to get nervous. And all I can say to myself is, this is normal. This is, I'm always going to feel this way. But when I get up on stage or when I get in front of a group of people, it just seems to go away. And even if it doesn't, that's okay. I think we had at the Adventure Travel World Summit in Panama that we were just at, I hosted an hour and a half roundtable session about technology, right? And while I've been working for a tech company for the last couple of years, my specialty is in travel tour industry. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go teach people about tech, right? And it's not there to teach them about WeTravel, but it is to teach them about efficiencies within your business as a whole and technology as a whole. And I was shaking sitting there, and I'm like, why am I do like why was I asked to do this? I don't understand. I asked a couple of my colleagues that were there with me to come and join me, and I said, could I give you guys a few questions to ask the audience and then field the answers and give your feedback? And they were like, no, like one of them said, yeah, maybe. The other one was so nervous. And she was like, I've never done this before. And I said, well, yeah, at some point I had never done this before. I'm like, I've prepared all of your questions for you. I am here the entire time. And I said to her, and I said, just so you know, I'm going to be just as nervous as you before this entire thing starts. And that was shocking to her because I've done this so many times. And I said to her, it just doesn't go away. And that's okay. And I've learned to, that I'm just used to it. At WTM, I'm speaking on a panel on the first day. We're co-hosting with the Adventure Travel Trade Association an event. And we also are going to, like, I will go up on stage again on the second day. I will shake uncontrollably and turn red like a tomato before both of those. I already know it. I'm ready for it. So yeah, before we got on this, when you said, are you ready to record? And I'm literally sitting here, my legs shaking. You can't see them because they're hidden. It's just a normal, I've just come to think of it as, well, this is what it is. And I'm just going to own it.
Yeah, I love it, and I love it so much, and I also love it because I always kind of engage with the cool exterior that I end up seeing when you speak on a panel, right? And so the version of you that I had painted in my head before I met was like, I should be nervous because she's always so assured and so confident, and, um, I love those moments of kind of myth busting, I guess, and getting back to the realness of things, and I do think it's important. I love that you shared that with your colleagues because that's how I think that's another way that we support one another is by letting them know that that doesn't devalue your expertise or your role or your position or your authority, that you can be nervous and still be an authority. Like, we can't overcome the human part of ourselves. And I also can strongly relate to all of the examples you gave, but it would be funny if anyone wants to go back and look at the YouTubes of my first conversations. Um, I, at that time, was always wearing like foundation or something, but my chest will be just like flaming red because I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is even happening? Even if I actually didn't feel nervous, I would notice that that would happen, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous." And the same as you, just kind of having to take a moment and be like, "This is just how it's gonna be, so let's not even deal with it." And then the other thing that I love that you said that also Brene said is that it was an indicator that this means a lot and that I'm acknowledging time is important and I'm taking some of yours. So I think all of those things are things that people listening can take away of um, kind of understanding that as leaders, so let me back that up. Another thing I think is like as women in leadership roles, I think we really feel like we need to show up better to prove that we deserve to be there. And so that's why I think that like red chest or wobbly legs or my voice sometimes will take a moment before it steadies no matter what. Like even if I'm feeling great, I'm like, here we are with that voice that's wavering. Um, then we feel crippled by that like human part of ourselves because it's more vulnerable as a woman. And I don't know if maybe that's changing, but it still feels really true to me. Um, how do you think we can support, kind of like you did, other women in just kind of navigating some of those challenges and recognizing that we don't have to dismiss our human parts to become leaders? Like those two things can be intertwined.
I think the human side of everything has made me a much better leader. I'm a very, very open book, um, to the point of oversharing. I think my team would probably tell you that. Um, I'm a very I'm very much so. I kind of just say it as it is, how I'm feeling in that moment, or what's happening, or that I get incredibly nervous still every single time I speak, or I'm nervous to submit this proposal, or I'm not sure about this, or I need to take today off because I am just not feeling well. And it's not physically not feeling well. I'm having an off day. I very openly tell my team those things because for me, if they feel like they're in a safe space, they're going to hopefully push themselves a little bit further, but then also feel like they can be as open with me and honest with me. And then that turns into them doing smart work, being more efficient and effective at work as well, and then them feeling good about themselves because they feel like and they know that they're contributing at work as well. So I've always been an open book, I think, and I lead my entire team. Everyone that reports into me right now are all women, and they're incredible. And but I'm just very real about everything because then I know that they can trust me because they know that they're getting exactly how I'm feeling in that moment or what I'm thinking in that moment. But then they know that they can express that as well. And they can feel that comfort level at work. So I just, yeah, for better or for worse, I'm just a very, very open book. Um, I've taken a lot of work to get to where I am. I've received some beautiful advice. I've received some not great advice either. Um, and I'm very lucky both ways because I think when you see, or I've had management where, has not like years and years ago where, it wasn't for me. But I learned so much from seeing that and saying, okay, I'll never do that. That would never, and I had to see that sometimes you have to see that to realize that those are things you're never going to do. But yeah, I am just 100% me, whatever I'm feeling in that moment. I just say it. And I find it makes my team just feel a lot more comfortable at the end of the day. So that's usually the way that I approach it. I love Brene Brown. I think I have like 3 of her books sitting on my shelf back there. Um, she just she's for me, it's calming, it's very real, it's honest, it's open. Um, so I love that style. Um, and yeah, that's yeah, I know that sounds
Yeah.
simple, but yeah.
No, I think it's so great. And I think the simpleness of it is why it's important because I think we've spent a lot of time not not leading that way and not setting those examples and being worried about that facade. And like I envisioned myself 20 years ago in my job in uncomfortable shoes and a suit and like trying to be who I thought I needed to be where I was. and wasting a lot of energy doing that. And like you said, if you can just show up as you, you're already like ahead of the game, and you're doing what you're set out to be there. You're probably doing what they hired you to do because you're being you. And so I think it's important. So I love that. Well, before we end our conversation, Shayna, I have a few rapid fire questions. So we'll jump into those. The first is, what are you reading right now?
I am reading, why am I forgetting? I think it's called The Exit Interview. I'm forgetting the name. It's a big pink book, and it's about somebody who worked for Amazon for a while, and her kind of life story through working for Amazon and why she left. So super intriguing.
Yeah. What is always in your suitcase or backpack when you travel?
Candies.
Oh, I love that
Angry,
answer the
angry
most.
Shayna is nobody's favorite Shayna.
I'm a super peanut M&M girl when I travel. I don't know why, but that's my favorite.
Peanut
Like, no,
Blasters
that's
all the
not
way.
To sojourn is to travel somewhere as if you live there for a short while. Where is one place that you would still love to sojourn?
Ooh, that I haven't been. I would actually love to experience more of France. I have so many friends that are from France. I've been to Paris and that's it. So I'd love to experience more of France.
Yeah. What do you eat that immediately connects you to a place you've been?
Sushi.
Ooh. I have never been anywhere where that is probably what it's meant to be. So I would love that experience. Who was a person that inspired or encouraged you to set out to travel the world?
Both my parents.
Yeah. And the last question, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but who is one woman in the industry you admire and would love to recognize in this space? This is going to be so hard, I know. One or two.
Oh my goodness. I look at it as I've been so incredibly lucky to have so many incredible women in my life. Okay, I will. Ooh. Oh my goodness. I probably named two. So the first one is Malia. She is the director of Jordan Tourism here in North America. She's the chairman of the board of Tourism Cares. She is a big reason why I'm on the board. And I get to look up to her every day and learn from her, not only as a vice chair, but just as a friend, as a colleague in the industry, and just seeing the beautiful relationships she has with so much of the industry, and how much she has supported me and introduced me to so many wonderful people that she established relationships with on her own. Yeah, she's pretty incredible. So that would definitely be one. And I've got my colleague and one of my closest friends. Her name is Casey McGurk. So she works at WeTravel as well. She's the head of PR and marketing, and she's probably one of the smartest women I know. And I've just been lucky to grow up with her in the industry. You know, we kind of grew up side by side at our last company as well. And the way that we bounce ideas off of each other, that we support each other, we go to each other for so much, and that we're so honest and real with each other as well. I can't wait to see the incredible things that she does, but I wouldn't be where I am without her either. And just quick shout out to Yvette Thompson, works for Intrepid Travel in Australia. She's been my mentor for the last 6 or 7 years now. From a leadership perspective, I wouldn't be anywhere without her.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning.
I could name like 10 other people. Like
I know if anyone asked me that question, I could never answer. But I love that you mentioned Malia Asfor. She was in, I think, the first season of my podcast, and I had a moment with, speaking with her that, 20 some years ago, she was one of the first women that I met in the industry who were in a leadership position, and really, for one, told me like it's possible, and for two, everything you said. Like, she's so inspiring, and watching her for this 20 years, like, I continually am just in awe. And so I really appreciate that. And I also have an email tab open to Casey that's probably been open for like 6 months, because I was in some session with her and I was like, I need to email her because I really want to connect. So this is a good reminder of doing that.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate this conversation. Like I said, I've been waiting a really long time to get to meet you and to have it, and it definitely didn't let me down. So I really appreciate that you took this time to be with me today.
Thank you for having me. This was fantastic. I had such a wonderful time. You're amazing. So this was so great for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Soul of Travel, presented by Journey Women. I hope you enjoyed the journey. If you loved this conversation, I encourage you to subscribe and rate the podcast. Please share episodes that inspire you with others, because this is how we extend the impact of this show. Learn more about each of my guests by reading our episode blogs, which are more than your average show notes. I think you'll love the connection. Find our episode blogs at www.soulfultravelpodcast.com. I am so proud of the way these conversations are bringing together people from around the world. If this sounds like your community, welcome. I'm so happy you are here. I am all about community and would love to connect. You can find me on Facebook at Soul of Travel Podcast, or follow me on Instagram either at she.sojourns or at Soul of Travel Podcast. Stay up to date by joining the Soul of Travel Podcast mailing list. You'll also want to explore the Journey Woman community and its resources for women travelers over 50. I'd also like to share a quick thank you to my podcast producer and content magician, Carly Eduardo, CEO of Comprehente. I look forward to